My name is Emma and I'm 24 years old. You'd think by now I'd have learned to set boundaries with my mom, but some habits die hard, especially when you've spent your entire life trying to earn love that always felt just out of reach. Last Tuesday started like any other day. I was at my marketing job, eyes glued to my computer screen when my phone buzzed. Mom's name flashed across the display. My stomach immediately tightened. She never called during work hours unless something was wrong, or unless she needed something. Emma, sweetheart, her voice came through, dripping with that particular sweetness that always preceded a request. I need a tiny favor. I should have known better. With Mom there were no tiny favors, but like a fool I asked anyway, what is it? Well, you know how your brother's wedding is coming up in 3 weeks. I've been looking at dresses and I found the most gorgeous one. It's perfect, absolutely perfect. The problem is, she paused dramatically, it's $3,200 and I'm a bit short this month. My heart sank. $3,000. That was nearly my entire savings for the down payment on my first apartment. Mom, that's a lot of money. Can't you find something less expensive? Emma, please. Her voice shifted, taking on that wounded tone I knew so well. This is your brother's wedding. The only wedding I'll ever get to attend as mother of the groom. Don't you want me to look nice? Or do you want everyone asking why the groom's mother looks like she shops at thrift stores? And there it was. The guilt trip perfectly executed. I closed my eyes, feeling the familiar weight settle onto my shoulders. Mom, I'm saving for an apartment. I've been planning this for 2 years. An apartment, she laughed, but there was an edge to it. Emma, you're 24, you have plenty of time for apartments. This wedding is in 3 weeks. Besides, didn't I help you through college? Didn't I sacrifice everything to raise you and your brother? The thing is, she had helped. She'd paid for some of my textbooks, covered my phone bill occasionally. But she conveniently forgot that I'd worked 2 jobs throughout college, that I'd taken out student loans I was still paying off. She also forgot that she'd used my college fund, the one my grandmother had left me, to renovate her kitchen 5 years ago, promising she'd pay it back. She never did. I'll think about it, I said weakly, knowing even as the words left my mouth that I was already beaten. Thank you, baby, I knew I could count on you. You've always been my responsible one. She hung up before I could respond. I stared at my computer screen, but the spreadsheet blurred. My coworker, Sarah, rolled her chair over. You okay? You look like someone just told you Christmas is cancelled. I explained the situation, watching Sarah's expression shift from sympathy to outrage. Emma, no, you cannot give her that money. That's your entire apartment fund. But it's my brother's wedding, I protested weakly. And she's right, she did help me through college. Sarah grabbed my shoulders. Listen to me, your mom is a grown woman with a job. If she can't afford a $3,000 dress, she needs to buy a different dress. This is manipulation, pure and simple. Deep down, I knew Sarah was right, but saying no to my mom felt impossible. It always had. Growing up, I'd learned that love in our family was conditional. You earned it by being useful, by sacrificing, by never saying no. My brother Tyler somehow escaped this dynamic. He was the golden child, could do no wrong. But me, I was the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who fixed things. That evening, I sat in my cramped studio apartment, the one I'd been renting for 4 years while saving every penny for a down payment. The walls were thin enough that I could hear my neighbor's TV. The bathroom ceiling leaked when it rained. But it was mine, and I'd been so close to leaving it behind for something better. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Mom with a photo of the dress. It was beautiful, I had to admit. Elegant, sophisticated, exactly her style. The message below read, "Isn't it perfect? The boutique can hold it for 3 days. Let me know soon, love you." 3 days, the pressure was immediate and suffocating. I looked around my shabby apartment, then back at the dress. Maybe Sarah was wrong. Maybe this was what good daughters did. Maybe I was being selfish. But something nagged at me. A memory from 2 years ago, when I'd asked Mom for help with an emergency dental procedure that insurance wouldn't cover. I'd needed $800. She told me she couldn't possibly spare it, that money was tight. Yet that same month, she'd taken a weekend trip to wine country with her friends, posting photos of expensive dinners and hotel rooms. The pattern was always the same. When I needed help, there was never money. When she wanted something, suddenly I had to find a way. I called my brother. Tyler answered on the third. Ring, his voice cheerful. Hey sis, what's up? Did Mom ask you for money for a dress? I asked bluntly. He laughed. Oh yeah, she mentioned it. I told her I'm tapped out with the wedding expenses. Why? She asked me for $3,200. Silence. Then Emma, tell me you didn't agree to that. I haven't yet, but she's pushing hard. Tyler sighed. Look, I love Mom, but you need to say no. This is ridiculous. She makes decent money. If she can't afford the dress, she should buy a cheaper one. Don't sacrifice your apartment fund for this. Hearing it from my brother, the person Mom always favored, somehow made it real. You're right, I said quietly. I know you're right. Then tell her no tonight, before she locks you in further. After we hung up, I paced my apartment for 20 minutes, rehearsing what I'd say. Finally, with shaking hands, I called her. Emma, did you see the dress? Isn't it gorgeous? Mom, I can't give you the money. The words tumbled out fast before I could lose my nerve. The silence that followed was arctic. When she finally spoke, her voice had transformed completely. I see, so your mother looking presentable at her only son's wedding isn't important to you. That's not what I said. I just can't afford to give you my entire savings. Maybe you could find something less expensive, or I could contribute $500. $500? She laughed bitterly. What am I supposed to do with that? Buy a dress from Target? Is that what you want, Emma? For me to show up looking like I bought my outfit at a discount store while Tyler's future in-laws are all dressed in designer everything? The guilt crashed over me like a wave. Mom, that's not fair. I'm trying to save for an apartment. You know how important this is to me. And you know how important this wedding is to me. But clearly your apartment matters more than your family. I thought I raised you better than this. I thought I taught you about sacrifice and putting family first. But I guess I was wrong. Tears were streaming down my face now. Mom, please don't do this. Do what? Tell you the truth. Emma, I have sacrificed everything for you and your brother. Everything. And now when I ask for one thing, one dress for one special day, you can't be bothered. Fine, I'll figure it out myself, I always do. She hung up. I sat there, phone still pressed to my ear, crying. Part of me wanted to call her back immediately to apologize, to transfer the money right then. But another part of me, a newer, quieter voice, whispered, this isn't right. This isn't how love should feel. I texted Tyler. I told her no, she's furious. His response came quickly. Good, stay strong, she'll get over it. But would she, and more importantly, would I ever forgive myself if I didn't give in? The next morning I woke up to 17 missed calls and a string of texts from my mom. Each message was a masterclass in manipulation. Some were angry. I can't believe you do this to me. Others were guilt-inducing. I guess I know where I stand in your priorities. And a few were heartbreaking. I just wanted to look beautiful for one day. Is that too much to ask? My hands shook as I read them. The urge to fix everything to make her happy was overwhelming. But for the first time in my life, I forced myself to pause. I thought about the pattern Sarah had pointed out. I thought about my leaking ceiling and my neighbor's blaring TV. I thought about the 2 years of saving, the extra shifts I'd worked, the dates I'd skipped, the clothes I hadn't bought. Then I did something I'd never done before. I called my grandmother, my dad's mom. We weren't super close, she lived 3 states away, but she'd always been kind to me in a no-nonsense sort of way. Emma, what a surprise, she answered warmly. How are you, honey? I explained everything, my voice breaking multiple times. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Emma, she finally said, her voice gentle but firm, your mother has always been this way. Even when your father was alive, she'd manipulate him into giving her whatever she wanted, then complain it wasn't enough. I love her, she's the mother of my grandchildren, but she has never learned to live within her means or respect other people's boundaries. But she's right, isn't she? She did help me through college, she did sacrifice. Grandma made a sound that was almost a laugh. Sweetheart, do you know about your college fund, the one your grandfather and I set up? My heart stopped. The one Grandma on Mom's side left me, the $15,000. That was $30,000, Emma. Your grandfather and I added to it every year. It should have been enough for most of your tuition. Your mother told us she was using it for your education. We found out years later she used it to renovate her kitchen and take a trip to Europe. Your grandfather wanted to confront her, but your father asked us not to. He said it would tear the family apart. The room spun. 30,000 do. Lars, that would have covered my entire undergraduate degree at the state school I'd attended. I wouldn't have needed loans. I wouldn't have worked myself to exhaustion. Why didn't anyone tell me? I whispered. Your father made us promise. He was going to tell you himself when you turned 25, help you process it. But then he passed away before he got the chance. Emma, I probably should have told you sooner, but I didn't want to poison your relationship with your mother. But hearing this, hearing her demand your savings after what she did, I can't stay quiet anymore. I was crying again, but this time it was different. This wasn't guilt or shame. This was grief and rage mixed together. She lied to me. She's been lying for years. Yes, Grandma said softly, and she'll keep lying as long as you let her. The question is, what are you going to do about it? After we hung up, I sat in my apartment for hours, letting everything sink in. The favor Mom had asked wasn't just unfair. It was grotesque. She'd stolen my education fund, forced me into debt, and was now demanding my apartment savings. And she'd wrapped it all in guilt and obligation, making me feel like the selfish one. Something hardened in my chest, a decision cold and clear. I opened my laptop and started typing. Not a message to my mom, but a spreadsheet. I listed every financial favor she'd asked for over the past 6 years since Dad died. The $200 here for a car repair, the $500 there for a temporary shortfall, the $1,000 for new furniture. None of it ever repaid, none of it ever acknowledged as loans, all of it framed as my duty as a daughter. The total came to $8,340. Add in the stolen college fund, and we were at $38,340. I stared at that number for a long time. $38,340. That was almost 2 years of my salary. That was the apartment I could have already been living in. That was the financial security I'd been desperately chasing while working overtime and eating ramen for dinner. The next morning I woke up with a clarity I'd never felt before. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. There's a difference between those two states, and it's massive. Anger burns hot and fades. Being done is cold, permanent, and liberating. I texted my mom, I need to talk to you in person. Can you meet me for coffee this afternoon? Her response came immediately. Does this mean you've changed your mind about helping your mother? I didn't answer, just sent the address of a coffee shop near her house and a time, 2 p.m. When I arrived, she was already there, her face a mixture of hope and residual coldness from our last conversation. She dressed nicely, probably thinking that looking good would reinforce her argument about needing the expensive dress. Emma, she said as I sat down, not quite smiling, I'm glad you came to your senses. I pulled out a folder from my bag and placed it on the table between us. I want to show you something. Her eyes narrowed. What is this? It's a list, every financial favor you've asked me for since Dad died, every dollar I've given you, none of which you've ever paid back despite calling them loans at the time. She waved her hand dismissively. Emma, family doesn't keep score like this. This is beneath you. $8,340, I said calmly. That's what I've given you over 6 years. That's not counting the $30,000 college fund that Grandma and Grandpa set up for me. The one you told them you were using for my education, but actually spent on a kitchen renovation and a trip to Europe. The color drained from her face. Who told you that? Does it matter? It's true, isn't it? She looked away, and for the first time in my life I saw something crack in her carefully maintained facade. That money was sitting there, she said quietly. You were getting loans anyway. I had needs too. The kitchen was falling apart. The kitchen you renovated is gorgeous, Mom. I'm sure the granite countertops and custom cabinets were worth my student debt. Don't be dramatic, she snapped, her face hardening again. I'm your mother, I raised you. You wouldn't even exist without me. And there it is, I said, my voice steady. The ultimate trump card. I gave you life, therefore I own you. Therefore you owe me everything forever. That's not what I'm saying. It's exactly what you're saying. It's what you've always said in 1,000 different ways. But here's what I've realized, Mom. Giving birth to me was your choice. Raising me was your responsibility. Those things don't create a debt. They were supposed to be acts of love, not investments you get to cash in on for the rest of my life. Her eyes flashed. How dare you speak to me like this, after everything I've done? After everything you've done, I leaned forward. Let's talk about that. You stole my college fund. You've manipulated me into giving you thousands of dollars I couldn't afford to give. You've made me feel guilty for having boundaries. And now you want my entire apartment. RVings for a dress you don't need. For a wedding where you'll spend 3 hours taking photos and complaining about the catering. That is not fair, she said, her voice rising. People at nearby tables were starting to look over. You're right, I agreed. It's not fair, none of this has ever been fair, but it's true. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. If this is how you feel, if you think I'm such a terrible mother, then maybe you don't need to come to the wedding at all. My heart clenched, but I didn't back down. Is that what you want, to punish me for telling the truth? I want a daughter who respects me, who loves me enough to help me when I need it. And I want a mother who doesn't measure my love by how much money I give her. We stared at each other across the table, years of dysfunction crystallizing in this single moment. She was waiting for me to crumble, to apologize, to beg her not to exclude me from the wedding. I could see it in her eyes, the absolute certainty that I would fold like I always had. Instead, I picked up my folder and stood. I love you, Mom, but I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not funding your lifestyle. I'm not absorbing your guilt trips. And I'm not setting myself on fire to keep you warm. Emma, she said, and her voice shook. For a second I thought maybe she'd actually heard me, maybe this was the breakthrough. But then she said, if you walk out that door without agreeing to help me, you're choosing to destroy this family. And there it was, the final manipulation. Make me the villain, make my boundaries the problem, not her behavior. No, Mom, you're choosing to make a dress more important than our relationship. I'm just refusing to participate in that choice. I walked out. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get my car keys out of my purse. Once I was inside my car, I let myself cry. Not because I regretted what I'd said, but because it hurt. Standing up for yourself always hurts when you've spent your whole life learning to sacrifice instead. My phone started ringing almost immediately. I let it go to voicemail, then another call, and another. Text messages flooded in. From Mom, I can't believe you embarrassed me like that in public. From Tyler, Mom just called me sobbing. What happened? From Mom's sister, my aunt, Emma, your mother is devastated. How could you be so cruel? I turned my phone off and drove. I didn't know where I was going, I just needed to move. I ended up at a park I used to visit with my dad when I was little. We'd feed the ducks and talk about everything and nothing. He died suddenly 6 years ago from a heart attack, and I'd never properly processed it because I'd immediately stepped into the role of supporting Mom through her grief. Sitting on a bench watching the ducks paddle across the pond, I finally let myself feel everything. Grief for my dad, who would have hated seeing Mom manipulate me like this. Anger at the money she'd stolen. Sadness at the relationship we'd never have. And underneath it all, a strange, unfamiliar feeling, relief. I'd done it, I'd finally said no, and the world hadn't ended. I was still here, still breathing. Maybe broken, but also maybe finally free. That evening, I turned my phone back on to find 47 missed calls and over 100 text messages. Most were from my mom and various family members she'd recruited to her cause. But there was one from my brother that made me pause. Emma, can we talk? Just us, no Mom. I called him, he answered immediately. Are you okay? He asked, his voice concerned. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe. Mom told her version of events, but I know Mom, so I want to hear yours. I told him everything. The college fund, the years of financial manipulation, the pressure and guilt and expectations. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. I knew some of it, he finally said. I knew she was harder on you than me, but I didn't realize it was this bad. Emma, I'm sorry, I should have noticed, I should have said something. You were the golden child, I said without bitterness. That wasn't your fault. Maybe not, but I benefited from it, and I let you take all the heat. He paused. For what it's worth, you did the right thing. Standing up to her, I mean, someone needed to, and God knows I never had the guts. She's going to make my life hell, I said. Probably, he agreed. But you know what? You'll survive it. And on the other side, you'll have your apartment fund, your self-respect, and a life that's actually yours. After we hung up, I looked around my cramped studio. The peeling paint, the water-stained ceiling, the radiator that clanked like a ghost in chains. In a few months, if I stayed strong, I could leave this behind. I could have a place with a real bedroom, maybe even a small balcony. A place that was mine, bought with money I'd earned and saved, not handed over to someone else's demands. The next few weeks were brutal. Why Mom launched a full-scale campaign to paint me as the villain. She told extended family I'd refused to help her, conveniently leaving out the part about the stolen college fund and years of financial exploitation. She posted vague Facebook statuses about ungrateful children and how motherhood was the most thankless job in the world. My aunt called, asking how I could be so selfish. My cousin sent a long message about respecting your parents. Even my mom's friends, people I'd known my whole life, started looking at me differently at social gatherings. But here's what happened that I didn't expect. Some people saw through it. Sarah from work became my daily support system, sending me funny memes and reminders that I was doing the right thing. Tyler stood by me, even when it cost him peace with Mom. And Grandma, my dad's mom, called me every Sunday to check in and remind me that boundaries weren't betrayal. Your father would be proud of you, she told me one afternoon. He always worried about how your mother treated you. He tried to protect you, but he didn't know how to fight her without making things worse. I think he'd be relieved to know you finally learned to protect yourself. Those words meant more than she could have known. 3 weeks later, Tyler's wedding arrived. I'd RSVP'd yes months ago, and despite everything, I showed up. I wore a dress I'd bought on sale 2 years ago, did my own hair, and walked in with my head high. Mom was there, of course, in a dress that definitely didn't cost $3,200. It was nice, perfectly appropriate, and probably cost about $400, which, of course, meant she'd lied about the original dress too, or at least drastically exaggerated its necessity. She saw me and her face went cold. She turned away, making a show of talking to Tyler's in-laws, laughing too loud at their jokes. The message was clear: you're invisible to me now. It hurt, I won't lie and say it didn't, but it also clarified something. This was who she was. This was who she'd always been. And no amount of money I gave her, no amount of sacrificing my own needs would ever change that. Tyler found me during the reception. You came, he said, hugging me tight. I came for you, I clarified, not for her. I know, and I'm grateful. He glanced over at Mom, who was watching us with pursed lips. She's been punishing me too, by the way. Apparently I should have made you help her. I'm sorry, I said. Don't be, honestly. It's been enlightening. I'm starting to see what you've dealt with your whole life. As the night wore on, something interesting happened. Without me there to absorb Mom's demands and complaints, she turned them on everyone else. She criticized the wedding flowers to Tyler's mother-in-law. She complained about her table placement to anyone who would listen. She made snide comments about the food, the music, the venue. And people noticed. I watched relatives exchange glances. I saw Tyler's new in-laws pull away from conversations with her. By the end of the night, she'd alienated half the room, and she'd done it all herself. No one to blame but herself. I left early, but not before Tyler walked me to my car. Thank you for coming, he said, and thank you for showing me what standing up to her looks like. I think I'm going to need to learn that skill now that I'm married. It gets easier, I told him. Not easy, but easier. Driving home, I felt something shift inside me. The guilt that had weighed on me for weeks was finally starting to lift. I'd been so afraid that setting boundaries would destroy me. Instead, it was revealing who I actually was underneath all the people-pleasing and self-sacrifice. 2 months later, I signed a lease on a 1-bedroom apartment with a real kitchen and a balcony overlooking a small park. The day I got the keys, I sat on the empty living room floor and cried. Happy tears this time. Sarah came over with champagne and takeout. To Emma's freedom, she toasted. To boundaries, I added. We clinked plastic cups and ate Chinese food on the floor, and it was perfect. My mom never apologized. She never acknowledged what she'd done or how she treated me. But eventually the cold silence thawed into a distant politeness. We'd see each other at family gatherings, exchange pleasantries, but the old dynamic was gone. I'd killed it, and in its place was something neither warm nor hostile, just neutral. Some people might think that's sad. Maybe it is. But for me it was survival. It was choosing myself for the first time in 24 years. It was learning that love shouldn't cost you everything you have. 6 months after Tyler's wedding, I got a text from Mom. I'm having car trouble. Can you help with the repair cost? I stared at the message for a long time. The old me would have already been calculating how much I could spare. The old me would have been drowning in guilt at the thought of saying no. But I wasn't the old me anymore. I typed back, that sounds stressful. I hope you find a solution. And then I went back to my life. My apartment with the balcony, my job I was good at, my friendships that didn't require me to set myself on fire to keep others warm. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, if I wish I'd just given her the money to keep the peace. And honestly, not for a second. That $3,200 taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. Your peace is worth more than someone else's comfort. Your future is worth more than someone else's wants. And your love for yourself is worth more than anyone else's approval. So no, I don't regret it. I regret not learning it sooner. But I guess some lessons only stick when you're finally ready to learn them. And at 24, sitting on my balcony watching the sunset over my own little corner of the world, I was finally ready. If you've ever been in a situation like mine, where family expects you to sacrifice everything while giving nothing in return, I want you to know something. Saying no doesn't make you a bad person. Setting boundaries doesn't make you selfish. Choosing yourself doesn't make you cruel. It makes you free. And that's worth more than all the guilt trips in the world.